Welcome back. Let's start this week with a comment that I got on LinkedIn. As we do these videos, we clip them, I post them on LinkedIn, hopefully we generate some conversation around them. One of the comments that came up was around scarcity in a world of abundance. This came from the last months of talking that if AI can produce infinite output, then in terms of skill sets like direction and taste become more important. But you're still dealing with infinite output. The comment, which I think was from Nora, who's a coworker of mine, I can't remember, I hope that was right, was that what creates value now in terms of output, right? So if output is infinite, what creates value? Even if you can direct it, even if you have taste, you can still create infinite versions of whatever it is. And so we started talking about this idea that scarcity is what creates value, and that goes back to either a physical good, which we've talked about, that the human interaction or the human connection or the craft of something will rise back up again. It could be an NFT, right? I don't remember who kicked the conversation off. I'll say I did because it sounds better. But I was saying, are moments in time the new sort of key to value? What I mean by that is we think of value in terms of objects or in terms of things we collect or things that we buy. If we get more and more of these and those hold less value, right? Is the moment in time the real thing that holds value? And the tangible example of that is sports, right? Live sports. And I love professional wrestling. Everybody knows this. For UAE time, on Saturday morning and Tuesday mornings, that's when WWE has live events, right? So I can watch it. If I wake up even 30 minutes late and I can start at the beginning, but I know it's not live, I'm like, I'll just watch it on YouTube later. And so it just made me think, when you're designing an experience, is that sort of a different way of thinking about meaning and value and experiences going forward?
Yeah, that's an interesting topic. I think there's layers of value. You made me think of a few different threads in there, but I think there's layers of value. And I think one of the most powerful emotional movers for us is, as you say, something that happens to us or with us in a moment in time, and then we like to recall that moment, and we do it through mementos, we do it through photographs, we do it through souvenirs. And part of the attraction of tack that we put around our houses is that it reminds us of times in our lives. We tend to buy things when we're on a good holiday or when we're with good people, take a picture when we're having a good time, and it recalls those moments. I think there is true emotional value, and then there's recollections of that value. And a lot of things when it comes to product design are trying to tap into that rich vein, but from a couple of steps removed.
So where you just said product design, I think people listening would say, yeah, I work on digital products. I don't really live sports isn't my thing, or moments in time aren't my thing. I would disagree. This goes back to during COVID times. Do you remember a product called Clubhouse? I think it was Clubhouse.
Yes.
It was like live sort of radio types of things where you could create dynamic chat rooms. They were radio, and then you could have the two hosts, and then you have an audience. You haven't. But during COVID, there were so many cool things that happened on that app. If I go to Twitch, right, the whole thing, I remember going to TwitchCon, and there was a talk that I was watching, and people were asked to bring, these streamers were asked to bring their favorite clips of them. And one of them was this person was playing, and it started a tense moment. And all of a sudden, I guess the person was 17 or 18 at the time, you hear this person's mom Jimmy, you need to wash your clothes. And he's streaming to 2 million people or something. He's like, Mom, shush. Jimmy, wash your clothes. Mom, I'm streaming. I don't care. It was hilarious. right? And it's amazing to watch it on YouTube, but I can just imagine watching it live where you're just like, this is one of those moments that like, I want to preserve this. I want that memory. So when people in digital products say no, like, oh, I don't think about time in that way, or I don't think of moments in time, I would disagree. I actually think it is something that you can look at. I don't know if I would say any application, but obviously there are many, many ways that you can incorporate moments in time into an application in very unique ways.
Yeah, I think it's hard with digital because it's a lot of what we experience in life has a physical component to it, and it's much harder to do that with digital. I'm thinking about really the good examples of product design I've seen over the years, and the first one that always jumps into my head is the Apple iPod when it came out, and the little scroll wheel, when you scroll through it, it's got that smooth click as you cycle through it, and we haven't seen anything like that before.
Oh, that's interesting. So I was thinking of a moment in time of a shared moment, or it doesn't necessarily have to be shared, but that's what was in my head. What you just said was the first time I experienced an interaction with a product. So as a product designer, do you start to think not just of signature moments in the product, but do you start to think of the first interaction and what that means, right? Like when people do unboxings, how special that can be. And like, do you rethink unboxing? Do you rethink, just because I have banking clients, right? Like opening a bank account. People will say, oh, it's banking. It's so boring. It's insurance. It's so boring. It's only boring because we don't make it interesting, right? Revolut proved that banking can be somewhat interesting, really well designed. It can get attention.
We are as well.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's a pet peeve for me because I'm as you do with banking clients at the moment, I'm looking at how do we actually take a step beyond what they've done, because what they did was sort of open up, as you said, and say banking doesn't have to be this legacy, form-driven, contract-driven engagement that you treat as a hurdle, as an obstacle to overcome. I like to see banking as a partner that's there to really amplify and be a springboard for you and your business. So I think if you embrace that, if you're designing for a generation which is maybe in their 20s, 30s, rather than a generation which is in their 50s now, who maybe aren't as digitally native, it's a whole new paradigm. But I'd like to come back to what you're saying about product design and sort of a pet peeve of mine is really bad user experience. It drives me up the wall because having done this for 30 years, I kind of feel that user experience should be really good, and if it's not really good, then someone's been very lazy along the way, or they've just not worked as hard. They just tick the box, get it out the door, and treat it as something that there's a switch on this to say we focus too much on technology rather than the actual engagement mechanisms I'd like to come back to. But my good example of really, really good product design this week is, might surprise you, is from Starbucks. Now, Starbucks, their coffee's not amazing. It's quite mediocre. It's over roasted, so you get consistent taste. It's a bit like McDonald's.
That does bother me, the burnt coffee flavor.
But it's always the same burnt coffee, and it's not. I don't mind it. It's very forgettable. It's not like I love my coffee now, and I can talk about that for hours. But I don't go to Starbucks. I've realised that I'm addicted to Starbucks, not for their coffee. I'm addicted to their mugs. Their mugs are really, really good examples of product design. And I've started realising that I can find mugs there that are the exact right size to cool the coffee at the temperature that I drink it. So it's perfect. The round of the mug itself is pleasant to drink from versus a metal thermos, which is not great. And the size is bang on. So I'm like, you just tick the three most important boxes for me when it comes to drinking coffee. I can put whatever coffee I like in it. I really like their mugs, and that my hat's off to the design.
You're making me think about something with product design. Again, going back to this idea of how do you create moments in time, not necessarily the interface or what we think of as user experience, but true product design around the totality of a product, or what used to be user experience, whereas the totality of the experience. With Starbucks, I remember years and years ago, I was in Disney World, and there was a Starbucks at Epcot Center, and you could get Epcot mugs, right? Or I got espresso cups. And it was just the coolest thing. I'd never seen them, and I know that I can only get them here.
Yeah, okay.
Right? So I start to think now, the answer is going to be, that's digital. That's physical products, right? You could do that with digital. Absolutely. You could say that when I'm within a certain space, that the experience changes based on the location.
Yeah.
I think there's something about that. So can you create, like Pokemon Go? Oh, that's a great example. There we go, Pokemon Go. Can you create an experience that has maybe that's location or time, but it's something that happens with scarcity. I'll say it that way.
Yeah.
Right? So you have built in a product that has scarcity, whether that is physical or digital or location or time. But that to me, if we go back to the whole start of this podcast series, the effect of AI on everything, is that a new way to think about product design?
Yeah, I think people are very sensitive to AI at the moment when it comes to AI. I'd like to dig into that a little bit. I read an interesting article this week which is around, it was coming at it from the whole mid-journey, generative AI and artists and people who are sort of fighting and pushing back against use of AI are sensitive around it being used for commercial products. And I saw there was a League of Legends Riot Games game. There was a skin that had been put online. Everybody was saying, "Oh, you're using AI in your games. It's terrible." And these guys are known for having AI game hosts, if I remember rightly. I'm not a League player, so. But there was this beautiful skin that had been designed, and if you poke it a bit more, you realise that actually the artist for it, I think it's called Halsey Lau, she came out and said, "I spent 350 hours doing this. I locked myself in my room for 3 weeks and worked on it. So it's all hand painted, and the reasons for the placement of everything." But everybody was up in arms about the fact that they use AI. I think when you can't tell the difference, and we're getting to that point, where do you go?
Wait, how did they? So was this a physical costume that she made?
No, it's a
digital
skin for a character in the game, and it's got this sort of. It's got this hand-painted sort of pastels, Japanese type look to it, flowers and ribbons, and you look at it, and on surface level, it does look like quite a lot of stuff that's come out of AI, but it doesn't have the usual tells you get from AI. So the details being misplaced, things not quite lining up.
Wait, so explain to me why people were up in arms?
Because they thought it was AI.
Oh, I see.
She wasn't arguing with them, which I also quite like, the fact that she wasn't coming out and saying, "No, it's not, I did it." It's only when somebody sort of poked her around something in a forum somewhere or on a chat that they found actually, no, it's not. But she kept quiet, let people have the big discussion, big debate online, which obviously then brought people like my attention, which is interesting. But I think people are so sensitive about it because it's so easy to produce things, prolific amounts of artwork, and people don't have necessarily the trained taste to be able to differentiate what's good. They're looking for other people to tell them what's good. It's easy to jump on a bandwagon and say AI is bad, any AI artwork is terrible. But is it really, or is it just another tool? And if so, how do you evaluate it?
Oh, you're getting me ramped up now. See, for the first part, I was trying to speak in a paced, organized fashion. I was trying to be slow. And now you triggered me. And now we are going. I recently saw an article from Fast Company, because again, we were getting in chats on LinkedIn posts. And I was chatting with one of the publishers over at Fast Company Middle East, and I said, "Send me some of your most interesting articles." He sent me one where UAE had declared, or one of these declarations, that with content online, they want to be able to say whether it is human generated, AI generated, like collaborative generated, human led. I forget exactly the different steps. There were 5 of them. And then this got to something that really bothered me, because everybody was like, this is so great. This is so wonderful. I'm like, that does sound great. We should have that. That's a wonderful idea. But Dunbar, what are ideas? They're worthless. And I didn't see anything in the article about how it was going to happen. And that bothered me to no end. Because of course, everybody can say, yeah, this is important. How are you going to do it? The only way that I've really seen at the moment is some level of metadata that's inserted into the content somehow, a sort of blockchain provenance type of thing.
What's the point at the end of the day? For me, there's 2 rules.
Okay, you can go, and then I'm going to tell you why you're wrong.
Yeah, good. I think you've got 2 situations. Either it's crap or it's good. And I don't care how you make it. If you made great content, you made it with an AI that engages me and gives me the information I want and entertains me on the way, then great, then I'll engage with it. And if you produce something which is just filler and it's just garbage and repetitive, I don't care if you wrote it yourself or use ChatGPT, it's just crap. And my example this week is, I started listening to a podcast. I messaged you the other day saying, give me an idea for a podcast to listen to. And you took more than 10 seconds, so I found a different one.
You said book. You didn't say podcast, you said
podcast, audio book, sorry.
Yeah, and I gave you two. The AI supremacy one and surveillance capitalism.
So I started listening to the surveillance capitalism one, which is great. But before that, I was listening to one about fitness, and I realised about 5-10 minutes into it, it was AI generated. The script was AI generated, and I'm not sure, but I think the voice was as well. Actually, I think they probably both were. And I listened to it for about 20 minutes, 30 minutes, going, okay, I know this is AI generated, the content is okay, the phrasing is repetitive, and it started to grate to me. With word pronunciations was what the biggest tell. When it started saying the same word wrong in different ways, and I got to the point of saying, okay, I've got all I need from this, I can't be doing this anymore, and I turned it off. And I think you can tell these days, and if you can't, then who cares? There's my argument.
This goes back to that point of scarcity. In a world of abundance, when anything can be generated, my belief is the idea that if somebody took time, right? So we'll say that's the qualifier, that somebody has taken part of their life to produce something, right? So what was that movie where, was it Justin Timberlake was in this? Where it's like you buy things based on credits of your life or something like that.
I quite like that because something was.
Right, yeah, I've never seen it. I've just seen clips.
It's like teen fiction.
But the idea that somebody traded part of their life to create something that I am consuming, right? When you think of a piece of content in that way, whether it is art or writing, an article or a book or a piece of music, that I think at least to me, at the moment, has more value, more intrinsic value than something that is purely written by AI.
Even if it's crap.
Even if it's crap, but I think those are two different vertices. So I think like if you have an x-axis, and then you have sort of human to AI, and then you have good to bad. Right, so it's like it can be bad and human, and that's the quadrant that you're like. And I guess bad and AI is like completely chuck it out the door. Bad and human is like it's an idea. Maybe it will find its way to something better soon. Right, but I think there's a level of nuance here. Like my 4-quadrant example is not working very well, but I think there's a level of nuance that life has been exchanged for something that I am seeing or viewing or listening to, and therefore the value of that holds more than something that is created by machines. Yeah, go for that.
No, I quite like that. I think the danger is you can invest a lot of time in something and go down rabbit holes which don't ultimately lead anywhere. So I think it's whether you keep going, whether you push through into finding something that's interesting, not just to you, but to other people. And I know I've spent time on things that I've got to the end going, yeah, I don't like it, so I throw it away and moved on. And I'm sure others do as well.
But is that bad? If we go back to that Nick Bostrom book, Deep Utopia, I have everything again, utopia, I have things around me solved, we have universal basic income, etc., blah, blah, blah. Then life really does become the pursuit of, right? So even if you're creating something that is bad, it is that pursuit of something, right? And I would argue what's bad, right? Because
but that one I can answer. I think something is bad because it doesn't appeal to more than you, or it might not even appeal to you. I think good and bad are really subjective, but if it's good, it appeals to lots of people. If it's bad, it doesn't.
Lots of people. I don't know if I'd agree. Like I'll give you an example here. I absolutely love a band called Brutal Truth.
Okay.
They are what I think of as some of the grandfathers of grindcore, although they're not. They're not. You can, for any big grindcore fans out there, I know I'm not proper on that. But they appeal to a fairly niche. It's like grindcore in general appeals to a fairly niche. I remember going to see them, and there's probably like 50 or 60 people there, and it was at a festival, so you're going to get a little bit of a bigger crowd. But God, I loved it. Like it was great.
Yeah. Okay.
And I don't know if it's the amount of people or
I'll walk my comment back because otherwise I'm saying, well, Beyonce's better than that, and then
yes.
Go down
So is it just that as long as what you produce is done so in a way that wants to have an emotional or some sort of impact on somebody's life?
And it could be your life, and that's okay. So end you want. So, I agree. That's good.
So it could be like when you know there's nothing wrong with locking yourself in a cabin in the woods and saying, I'm just going to read.
Yeah.
Like that is what I want to do. It's not what I want to do, but I think you have this idea that the way that we can think about whether that is product design, digital product design, whether that is the AI versus human field, this to me goes back to that whole, actually this last, like whatever it's been, 20 or 30 minutes we've been talking, is the whole idea of why I am not worried about the whole job thing, right? Because there are so many nuanced ways to look at, like, again, even you take the narrowest sliver of digital design, banking applications, insurance applications, give me something else, healthcare, right? Things that are traditionally boring. There is still so much that you can unpack and unlock. And I'll give you one more example, and then I will stop monologuing for a minute. I am working for a company that works with CPAs, so certified public accountants.
Okay, that sounds exciting.
And so, exactly, right? So I got on the phone with them just to do an intro, and I said, let me tell you why I'm excited to talk to you. I had my tax advisor in Amsterdam, and I'm one of their most complex cases because of the number of countries that I move around in, where I am at any one moment, the companies that I have. And we were going to submit some documents to the IRS. Now, this was a fairly complex process. And he calls me, and he's like, we have a call with the IRS tomorrow. I was like, oh, what? Okay. So, because we're submitting these like crazy foreign income, foreign corporation documents, we get on the phone, and it's literally like an IRS agent who we're having a Zoom call with. At the end of it, she's like, well, you can do this and you can do this, and this is the easier way to do it. You know what? Here's the direct line to my office. Just, take this. If you have any more questions, just call me. We get off the phone, and the guy is the most excited I have seen almost anybody. He's like, I can't believe I just got a direct line to the IRS. I've never filled out these documents. I've never done this. And he was so excited by it, right? And that's what I mean by, like, for him, that little moment in time was probably so impactful.
Yeah.
To anybody else, it'd be like, oh my God, like, seriously, that's what excites you? But my point here is that even things that seem boring, if you take the idea that something can be meaningful to people, that something can create an impact. And so when I had this call with the client, I told them the story, and they were like, oh my God, you get it. They're like, everybody thinks we're boring, but we love what we do. And I'm like, yes, I know you love what you do. And that's what's so cool. And that's why I'm excited to work with you, because there is so much interesting, so many interesting ideas that we can do with CPAs, right? And you can even go back to the idea that you can do like the Clubhouse live broadcasts, or like, but people get lazy, in my opinion, and they don't think about these things because. And this is, oh my God, I mean, it's so angry at, user experience professionals, because they're like, we're user experience, we speak for the user. And you're like, no, you don't, because you're sitting here and you're telling me this is boring when there are people, users, who are telling you, to them, this is exciting, and you are sitting there with whatever, your ego or your point of view, that you're just looking at it from one side, and you are not doing user experience. You are doing, Joe loves to do boxes and arrows on a screen as opposed to actual user experience. And that's my rant. I'm done. You take it.
You know what, I like it, and I have a very strong belief that in the roles that we play, we have a duty to be the cheerleaders on teams. I've been really blessed to work on what some might call the really glossy, showy projects of digital, things like the Nike basketball takeovers, for Jaguar Land Rover, we took over Euston Station in the UK, we've done stuff in Times Square. So I've been really blessed with physical stores for Verizon, where we did one of the first digital and physical mixes to connect the two together about 10 years ago. There's some crazy things we've done out there, but I think the real trick is finding the joy in everything and approaching every project, every client with a view that you're there to make an impact. And the one thing that I think they all have in common for me is that we've been able to move the needle. I think it's not about ticking boxes for me. It's not about can we just get the job done, get paid, and move on to the next one, the next glossy, showy thing. Often those glossy, showy things are the ones which have the hardest, grinding pieces of work that you need to do to get done. And some of the what seem more boring on the surface have the more exciting chances to do things, to actually change things, to change an industry, to change how people engage with their customers. So I think you look for the angles that you can play, you look for where the joy is, and you bring a team with you.
There was, I think it was a podcast I was listening to from Scott Galloway. I think it was Scott Galloway. Lots of I thinks in there. What you just said, where when you're in a consultancy, right, a user experience person, and this again goes back to my anger around you're not really looking at it from a user's perspective. So many designers want to work on the cool things. Oh, we want to work on Nike.com, whatever, Hermes.com, all these things, or the Louis Vuitton app, or I don't know, like NBA type of stuff. I'm sure all of us can think of the cool things. The challenge for me is, not the challenge. Going back to that Scott Galloway thing. Everybody wants to work on these really cool experiences. The opening, and I don't know if it's, I want to say how you get rich, but maybe it's how you have an impact. What's the boring thing that nobody cares about, right? There are so many, like you go to the US and there's so many people who are millionaires because they do roofing tiles, they do urinals, right? They do floor tiles. And it's the things that nobody thinks about, but that can make such an impact. If designers could think in terms of that way, if people wanted to go to whatever, boring company and say, look, I know the perception that's here. I want to change that, right? And look, maybe whatever, your oncology app is never going to be super exciting because nobody wants to have a cancer application, but there are probably a lot of things that you can do that are life-changing, or maybe it's not life-changing, but endearing, I don't know the right word for it, but something that makes a difference to somebody with an application that seemingly most people would never care about. Yeah. And you can say, I'm going to care about this because I know others care about it. And for me, that is great user experience.
Do you know, that's ironic you use that example. I've done a lot of work with pharmaceuticals and life science companies, and the people working there are some of the most motivated, fired up people I've ever come across, because they're there. All this rubbish about big pharma out there to take your money. Actually, every single person I think I've met at big pharmaceuticals has been driven to make a difference to human lives by actually doing good in the world. That's what struck me, not this desperate capitalist idea to get money out of people. I've been really inspired by people there. I think if we can take that attitude into other industries and look at how are you going to move the needle, how are you going to change what you're doing, you make active decisions with your life as to where you're going to spend your time. So why not be the best you can be? Why not push it as far as you can and see how you can make things better for the next generation? Stop telling people you can be a dolphin trainer in the Bahamas if that's what you want to do with your life. You're here right now because you choose to be here. So what are you going to do with it?
Now I feel like we're going into a very Dubai thing, like go live your life. Yeah. Let me be a life coach and help you and do these things. I'm going to move to Bali and get my yoga and instruction. So I think the way that I want to wrap this up, and I'll say a couple things about conversations at work over the last week, because I think it helps tie these things together. Within Sapient, we have the experience like capability, right? The experience organization. A lot of people might call this the design organization, or they might call this the UX organization. We call it experience. Within that, there's a few different skill sets, but one of them is experience design, which breaks down to UX and UI. I asked the team, the organization that I have, I was like, what do you think makes the difference and stops us? I don't know if it stops us, I forget what I said, but like what makes the difference between UX designers, how we think of it, and product designers? And so much of the comments that I got back and really sort of fired people up was seemingly around, oh, we need to be early on in thinking about the actual features and functions that are within a digital application. And I agree. Like I think that's spot on. Because you want to sort of have an understanding. If you are truly designing a user's experience, yes, it is not just about the interactions, it is not just about the visuals of it, it is about what goes into this product to create that experience. Where I challenged them and where this sort of looks at the conversation that we've had today is, I think that's just one part of it. I think that's a small piece, right? There's also the technology part on it, right? Like the feasibility or how you build something out over time, the performance of something, and then also not just the application itself, not just the little viewport that you have, the phone application, but the totality of the experience. I've been having these conversations with members of the design team over the last month or so for a client, because we're looking at how to define a roadmap. And right now, so many people, I think, thinking features. Right? They're like, okay, let me design this roadmap. What are the MVP features? I'm like thinking themes, or think in terms of what's the customer goal of this release? Because whatever you're doing in this release, it should in theory tie to marketing. That's your driving awareness. So what's the message that you are creating? What's the journey that you're creating? All these things are interconnected. And this to me gets into that idea of product design, where you are breaking out of this little mold. This is something we've talked about nonstop on this, right? Get out of the damn 3 screens. Think about the totality of the actual product itself. Go back 30 years, and this used to be called user experience design. Somehow we narrowed user experience design down to the screens that you see on a digital product, and now we call product design what used to be user experience design. But that's how I think I'll wrap this up. We talked about all these different ideas of whether you create moments in time, or how do you think about what's meaning or what's valuable in terms of the products and experiences that you're creating. And that to me is a true user experience, or these days a product designer.
Yeah, the time is an interesting lens. I think when you compare the more glossy, the more glitzy marketing, mark-ons type products, the stuff that everybody wants to work on, the really glamorous things that take you to Cannes, they tend to be quite transient. They tend to be very short-lived. They're out there maybe for a season, maybe even less, and then they go away. Whereas I think right at the other end, true product design, you're building products which last 3, 5, even 10 years potentially. Even in digital, they last so long. They might evolve, but they can have some quite hefty lifespans. And I think I tend to play these days somewhere between the two. That it's rare that I'm working on a big, long-lived product, because those things tend to be built by in-house teams. I tend to be working somewhere in products which have a lifespan of about 2 to 4 years, if I'm lucky at the 4-year mark. So I think the skill sets that go with that evolve as well. And at Wongdoody, we put a lot more emphasis than I've seen in a while on service design. So thinking about where that product sits in a wider scheme of things. And I quite like that, from my time at Satan, the emphasis on product there. That was a nice lens to see. On the flip side, I think we do a bit more service design, a bit less product. You get a different balance on how you approach it. I think that understanding of how do these things fit into people's lives, and focusing on, as you say, less on the technology and feature-driven aspect of it, and more on what's the outcome for the customer, which you just said, but also what's the experience you want them to walk away with, having engaged with this tool. So they're going to come away, they're going to do the actions that you want them to do, or that they want to do, they're going to complete them, they're going to come away. what's the sentiment, the feeling, the emotion that they come away with? So when they come in to engage again, that they're approaching it with, I think that's the craft of experience of life.
I was going to hand it over to you to wrap it up, but now you said something and I'm like, well, now I got to respond. The creative world, right? The agency world does these, we'll say ephemeral moments, right? These marketing messages, and product or UX designers work on applications that stay around. I'm going to throw a term out that I just made up.
Brilliant.
Feature decay.
Yeah.
So what if you created features and functions within an application that were only there for a moment in time? And this idea, I'll say, was sort of, I don't know if it was pioneered to me because it's been around. One of my old coworkers, this nice gentleman who used to do podcasts with, he created digital art and he put it online, and every time somebody loads it up, a pixel of it disappears. And so the more that people view the image, the more that it decays.
Yeah.
And he was like, the whole idea is that you can build in a life cycle to digital art. You can destroy something that is meant to have infinite, sort of viewings. I don't know what types of features you would build in that you would want. Like, obviously, features turning on and off seems like it's a really bad idea, but also it's like I don't know. I just made it up, so I haven't really thought about it.
We
so
digest that.
Yeah, we can talk about that next week. But Dunbar, as always, it is great, and I will talk to you next week.